Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and today I have a special guest. His name is Thomas White. He began his career as an actor. Several years later, he found himself as the artistic director for a theater in Los Angeles and the winner of several Drama-Logue and Critics awards for directing. He directed and co-produced the world tour of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, coming out of their shells. The short tour for over 2 years was translated into 7 different languages and seen by close to 1 million children. Tom has served as president and creative director of Maiden Lane Entertainment for 24 years and worked on many large-scale productions that include Harley-Davidson, Microsoft, Medtronic, Diabetes, and dozens of others. The Edison Enigma is Tom's third novel, following up The Justice Rules, which has a finalist in the Pacific Northwest Writers Association 2010 Literacy Contest and the Siren's screen of a fourth-season book award winner. Wow, that is amazing. And, I definitely grew up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so that's
Oh,
kind of
did
pretty
you?
awesome. Yeah,
You're in the right age range. Yeah, everyone now that's in their 40s, 45, they're the ones that grew up with it. And
yep.
yeah, we put that tour together. It opened at Radio City Music Hall in New York. It played for all around the country, all the Universal Amphitheater, all the big theaters all over the place. I directed, co-wrote, co-produced, and I was also the voice of Raphael. So
Wow,
um, it was quite an
nice.
experience.
We might have you do some impersonations right now or
Oh, yeah.
something.
That was a long time ago, and that's
Yeah,
a pretty high register for me these days. But
yeah, I bet, I
we can
bet.
give it a shot.
Yeah, exactly. So Tom, tell me a little bit about your upbringing, where you're originally from. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in New England, in Massachusetts, and lived
Yeah.
there till I was about 12. And I went off to Boy Scout camp and came home, and my parents said, "Hey, we're moving to Arizona." And I was kind of grateful they remembered to pick me up, actually. So, um,
Yeah.
so we moved to Scottsdale, Arizona, and I always say that's where I grew up because that's where I went to high school. So
Okay.
I did high school there. I did 2 years at the University of Arizona as a theater major. I transferred to San Diego to a place that doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. It's called the United States International University School of Performing Arts.
Mm.
And yeah, I know it's a mouthful. The cheerleaders were
Yeah.
just going crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and I started working professionally in the theater from that point on. I never did anything else really. And I started, like I said, I started as an actor. I got over that relatively early. I was doing a production in Santa Ana of a play called Butterflies Are Free.
Hmm.
Goldie Hawn and I forget who the guy was, did the movie. Again, this is back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And it's about a blind kid who moves to New York, who's trying to break away from his domineering mother out on on Long Island, and he wants to have a career as a musician. So he breaks out on his own. He's trying to live in New York City as a blind kid, and befriends the girl. The girl upstairs befriends him, and that's what the whole story's about. And we did a show. There was a group that came in. This theater sat. It was pretty big. It sat about 600 people, and it was sold out. I came out on stage for the curtain call. I got a standing ovation, and the girl that was playing the opposite me came out. She was just ecstatic. She could like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. And I got back into my dressing room. My buddy, who's playing the other male part in the show, looks at me and he goes, "What's wrong?" I said, I just got this standing ovation, and I don't really care. I don't think I'm
Hmm.
an actor.
Got it.
If you can't get excited about that, then what are you going to get excited about, right?
Right.
So I concentrated on directing at that point, and I started directing all over Southern California and worked at just about every major theater down there. I was on staff at the Mark Taper Forum at the Music Center. I worked at Long Beach and Pacific Civic, et cetera, La Mirada, all of those
Yeah.
places. And along the way, met a buddy of mine, and we kind of got caught up in a series of events, one being Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA, because I had never been a Springsteen fan.
Yeah.
And I was on the road with a show, and I had to travel from Flint, Michigan to Traverse City, Michigan, which is about a 3.5, 4 hour drive. And the only car they would give me to go one way was a brand new 1984 bright red T-top Camaro.
Hmm.
And I'm sitting in this car, and I hadn't seen the sun in 10 days because it was just June in the Midwest. And as I'm driving north, it's got this great sound system. I'm like, God, I wish I had a cassette. And I remembered that my buddy at home gave me one just before I left, and I pulled
Right.
it out of my bag and popped it in, and it was Born in the USA. 3 hours later, this is the greatest album ever written.
Yeah.
So we got caught up in that, and we got back to LA, went to see him at the sports arena, and we're coming out after this 5.5, 6 hour concert, just pumped. And my buddy says, "How come you can't leave a Broadway show like this? Why is it that you can't get? It used to be all the music came from Broadway, all the exciting stuff that was happening happened on Broadway, and it's not happening anymore." And we started to explore that. And he sat down and wrote a musical called Strides, um, that I went back to New York and we mounted. I directed. We had one glorious night at the Equitable Theater on Broadway. The next day, the stock market crashed. It was known as Black Thursday, and that was the end of our production.
Yeah.
So, but from that collaboration, we ended up getting into the Ninja Turtles and went from there. And then after, gosh, I probably did 20, 25 years in the theater.
Hmm.
And I got to the point where I loved putting the shows together. I just hated maintaining them. Like
Got it.
once it was open, I wanted to be done,
Yeah.
go on to
Yeah.
the next thing. And I coincidentally just started to transition into corporate event production, which is the same skill set. It's all about lighting, sound, staging, et cetera, creative concepts. So all of that stuff was, worked in my favor. And I ended up opening my own company that I ran for 23 years, doing that.
Mm.
Now, the interesting part about being a director is that you're telling a story. Now, you're telling a story using actors and scenery and sets and costumes and lighting, etc. It's a really simple transition into becoming a novelist because you're doing the same thing. Your tools are very different. As
Yeah.
a novelist, of course, you're working with words and you
Right.
have a blank page, and that's what you're filling up. But the storytelling is essentially the same. The characterizations, creating characters, making them believable, making them individuals, that's all part of the same process. The skill of writing is something you can learn. Um, to actually write is that's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
I could not believe it. I came home. Um, I was sitting at home one day and I looked at my wife and I said, I've opened shows in New York City at Radio City Music Hall, and none of that is as hard as this is.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
just sitting there and it's the blank page, and and you've got to fill it up. So I started doing that basically because I was traveling so much and spent so much time on planes. And with the advent of the laptop computer, suddenly now I can write on an airplane.
Right. Your
So
creative mind started thinking, and let's put
yeah,
something to,
yeah.
kind of like pen to paper. Yeah, for sure.
You get your upgrade, your glass of wine, and your laptop, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, exactly right. At that point, you're like, 100% in. So tell me, like, I love the evolution. I love, essentially, you've done so much in your life. Where was the original interest of you getting into like theater and, obviously that was kind of like the beginning, right, for you getting into like being out and entertaining people, right? Where did that interest come
I've
from?
always had that instinct. I mean, I remember when we were kids back in Connecticut.
Yeah.
The older boy next door would throw on little plays, and I would always participate in them. And I always had an idea, and I always knew what I wanted to do. Um, when I got into high school, my sophomore year, I needed to take an elective, and the choices were geometry, typing, or drama. And
Mm.
geometry just not on the list.
Right.
Um, typing sounded really boring,
Yeah.
and drama was kind of intriguing.
Yeah.
And I did that, and I found out that if I auditioned for the play, I get extra credit. So I
Mm.
auditioned for the play. I got cast in the play,
Yeah.
and there you go.
Got it. I love that. So
Yeah.
one of the biggest thing for you, you're talking about how you kind of transition from, doing all this on stage and putting different shows all over the place, right? To now being a novelist and writing and 100% I do agree that sometimes just having I would say probably the discipline and or even the character to, sit down and write is not that easy, right? And for
Oh,
you, one of the things that you had to overcome, and so tell me a bit about that, is being an unknown author and gaining recognition, right? Being able to get your name out. Tell me more about that.
that is the hardest part about this. The writing is the writing, and it's good or it's not. People like it or they don't. I just, the last book I wrote, The Edison Enigma, it's a time travel piece.
Hmm.
And I was fortunate enough to have the novel win Best Fiction for a group called the International Impact Book Awards. And that qualified me as a nominee of Author of the Year. And 3 weeks ago, I think it was, in Hollywood, we went down, they had a big black tie gala, and lo and behold, my name gets called, and I go down and I won Author of the Year in the adventure fiction area.
Nice.
And I was totally unprepared for that because there were, I don't know, 300 people in the room.
Yeah.
And I get up and I gave my little speech. I got the trophy and went off. And then they put you immediately in front of a webcam and you're being live, interviewed live on camera. And the question the guy asked me is, what does winning an award like this mean to you? And I taken aback a little bit. And then I just went, you know what? I have written 3 novels. I've had zero commercial success. I do it because it's tremendous amount of satisfaction for me. It's a great creative outlet for me. But to be acknowledged this way with an award like this, it was really special. I was
Mhm.
much more overcome than I thought I would be at
Yeah.
uh, at winning something like that. And it's pretty special. I mean, I really enjoy that.
Yeah, yeah. Part of it is, when you're writing, right? Whether it's fiction or nonfiction, is the idea is, number one, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, to me at least, I see that as whoever's picking up that book, I want them to resonate with whether it's a chapter, a paragraph, a phrase, or even just a simple word that they picked out by reading that novel, right? Or that book. And uh, oftentimes, again, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, oftentimes the message within the characters or the story that you're telling can really help people in their own life, right? And get them
Oh,
to
sure.
start seeing things creatively. And I think you and I both agree on one thing, and I like what you said here is if you want to be a writer, you have to write, good or bad or sloppy, you can change something, you can change nothing, right? And I love that message because I do believe that at the end, I believe we all have a message, and there's something that can be said. And one of the best ways, even with today's technology and today's time, right? One of the best ways for us to communicate something is through books, right? And
Oh, yeah.
through literature. And so beyond having that satisfaction of you're doing it, you have the self accomplishment, what else has this done for you over the years? Obviously your transition to being this your thing now, what is that doing for you or the people that come across your books?
I think for me, the satisfaction comes in completing the project.
Okay.
It's a massive undertaking. My first book was called Justice Rules, and it was a murder mystery set in the Pacific Northwest. I had the idea, I don't know, well, it was the O.J. Simpson trial. So in the mid 90s,
Yeah.
uh, O.J. was acquitted, and then Fred Goldman, who was the father of Ron Goldman, who's one of the two that were killed.
Hmm.
um, along with his wife, uh, was at a podium, and the image just stuck with me. He was in his 50s. He had this big handlebar mustache, and he was standing at the podium, and he was lost. He knows who killed his son, and he was just acquitted. And there's no recourse for him now, short of walking up on the steps and shooting him in the head, at which point then he pays to the justice system that failed him.
Mm.
And I started thinking, what would I feel like? What would I do? How would I make this work if I needed to have justice and nobody was there to help me? And thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote, put it away, came back to it, wrote some more, came back. It was awful. I rewrote it, and suddenly it all started to fall into place in terms of how you would, in fact, exact justice without paying to the justice system that failed you. The key line for the novel is how far can you go before justice becomes revenge?
Mm.
And there's some there's some specifically vivid violence in it in a couple of places, and I did it intentionally because when you're a victim, everything gets homogenized. You know, the child was molested.
Mm.
What does that mean? I mean, what
Mm.
really happened? Why do they say that? Because no one wants to know what really happened.
Right.
All right. Um, and as a victim, you're you're looked upon like that you did something wrong.
Yeah.
And and you see it all the time in rape
Like
cases.
you provoke it. You're the one that it happened to you because you did
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
okay. And you're walking down the street and you get attacked, and now it's your fault because of what you were wearing, or
Right.
you have $100 bills hanging out of your pocket. Well, that that might attract attention. Um,
Right.
and I wrote some of this from the victim's perspective so that the the violence and the audacity of the crime was really recognized. And so I got a little bit of feedback, pushback on this is a little over the edge, and I toned it back
Yeah.
4 or 5 times before I got to where I was. But that process is what makes it exciting. In each one of my books, I've had that aha moment
Mm.
where I've written something. In the first one, I had written the novel, and then I went, wait a minute, what if this guy was the boyfriend?
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And I went back. I had to change about 6 sentences. It was already all there. I had
Yeah.
written it all. I just didn't put it together.
Right.
The second one, it's a horror story. It takes place on a cliff in Santa Cruz, California, in the backyard of a mansion that has this giant tide pool. It's called the Siren Scream, and the pool is haunted by a siren.
Mm.
Again, long time trying to figure out how to make this intriguing because what are there 100,000 mermaid stories?
Yeah.
Coming up with a new twist on it was really difficult, but I was having a conversation. My parents were sick at the time, and myself and my 4 sisters were having a Zoom call. I have one sister that's particularly crazy and was giving us all a really hard time. And I just shook my head. I went, I wonder if mermaids have to deal with this. Oh, this kind
Yeah.
of family stuff. Wait a minute. How do you become a mermaid?
Yeah.
How do you become a siren? Are you born to be naturally try to kill sailors and crash them? And all of a sudden I went, wait a minute, and I came up with the origin for this siren in the pool, and suddenly everything all came together. And I had finished the book. I had sent it to my editor. They were doing all of the grammar and all of that stuff that editors do, and I was supposed to get it back the next day. I was watching television that night, and in some show, some character says, "The devil has no friends."
Mm.
And I went, that's not true. Fire is the devil's only friend. Every Don McLean guy knows that, right? From
Yeah.
American Pie. And as soon as I said it, I went, fire, demon, I got to burn the mansion.
Mm.
I had to go back and rewrite the last 4 chapters of the book.
Yeah.
Considerably better. Well, much better ending, way stronger. But it was the night before I was getting it back from the editor.
Yeah.
I had to call and say, hang on to that for a second. I'm going to send you some new stuff.
Right.
So
Yeah. No, that's exciting. What's normally the time frame for you to come up with these ideas and put it all
Oh,
together?
I have no time frame. I
Okay,
wrote my first one. I published my second one 10 years later. I
got it,
published my third one 18 months after that. And it's been out now for a year and a half, and I'm about three-quarters of the way through my next one.
got it.
So it it's just it's a inspiration thing for me.
Yeah,
I'm not disciplined that say I have to write, for 45 minutes every day.
got you.
I don't work that way because
Got
I'll
it.
sit there and I'll just
Yeah.
just start
So
writing.
you talked about obviously for you the satisfaction of seeing that project complete, whatever time frame that takes. What about what is the one thing you want people that are getting a hold of this book, this novel? What is the one thing you want them to walk away with, and what is their biggest?
Um, I, I'm not a really insightful guy, I don't think.
Okay.
I like for them to enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Picking up a story, I'm taking you on a journey, I'm telling a story, and I want you to be intrigued and engaged in the story. And if there's something in the story that you take away, that's great. But for
Gotcha.
the most part, it's just to me is to entertain people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, it goes back to that idea, everybody's in a different place, and I do believe that, whether you're entertaining somebody that might be going through a difficult time, and the best way for them to kind of, look the other way is by having something like that. I think that in itself is huge, and I do see that a lot. It
Yeah,
doesn't have
and
to be,
and there's a lot to be said for just pure entertainment. I
right.
mean, nothing, everything doesn't have to be insightful and what have you. I was doing a play a couple of years ago called Brightside, and it's about male breast cancer.
Okay.
It's a musical, okay?
Okay.
There were only four people in it, and the actors were just superb. But we were working on one particular part, and it's a really heavy, heavy topic, right? And at one point, we just stopped, and I looked at one of the guys. I said, "You know what we need here is a tap number, just something to lighten the mood here, because this is so intense."
Yeah.
You know, but I tend to go toward uh, just entertainment. I'm trying to write a character coming of age story right now.
Mm.
And I've written a lot of it, and I'm just not sure if I'm accomplishing what I want to. So I've had a couple of people read what I've written, and they come back and oh yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, no, it kept me engaged.
Yeah.
Not the response you
You're
want.
like, I was gonna say that. That's not exactly what you're looking for.
I said, well, thanks for being polite. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And it's now I'm transitioning it more to the coming of age, but also um, there's now a danger element involved in it, and that's going to create a lot of complications
Yeah.
for my lead actress or lead character. See, I'm still directing.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. The characters. Yeah.
yeah, the idea for this one came. We were at a birthday party for my wife, and we're in a room, and there's, I don't know, 10, 12 people in the room, everyone having, their own conversations. And it was one of those situations where everyone in the room took a breath at the same time, except for one person. And what she said cut across the room, and everybody heard it. And we're sitting there, we're talking, and all I hear is kangaroo is my safe word.
Hmm.
And I started laughing. I was like, whoa, I want to know what this conversation's about. And I just thought, what a great title for a book. I wonder what this book is about. And
Mm.
I just stayed with it, and it started to come to me. And like I said, I'm in the process of three-quarters of the way through it, which means I'm probably half through it because
Yeah.
I'll stumble onto something and say, "Oh, wait a minute, I got to change those five chapters."
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but that's just the way I work.
Yeah.
I'm not like I could never write a self-help book or a fiction based on my experience at something because quite frankly, I had a pretty blessed life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
You know,
no, definitely. Yeah, no, and again, I think there's a lot in that too. So what do you foresee in the next? What's next for you, right? Obviously, you got this award. You obviously love to write and at your own pace. What is next for you? What is the next, year or so look
well,
like
I'm
for you?
continuing to write.
Yep.
I've also written two musicals, and I trying to get those. I live here in Las Vegas, and one of them is written specifically for Las Vegas. It's a book
Gotcha.
type of thing, and I'm always on the lookout for some way of getting that produced.
Yeah.
And then other than that, I've got I always joke around now. I say I have two things that work for me: my pool filter and my wife. So
Yeah.
um, my day, I've taken up a couple of hobbies. I've started to refinish furniture. I've started getting really into the epoxy river top deck
Mm,
and
yeah.
stuff. Um, so I do that during the course of the week, and then I'll write and then read. And
Yeah.
it's, like I said, I'm living the dream right now here in Las
Oh,
Vegas.
that's awesome. What would be your message for those people that say, hey, like kind of going back to the idea, I'm like, man, I don't know, I'm not a writer. I kind of want to write something, but maybe I don't know if anyone is gonna like it. Like, what would be your message for those people that are kind of on the fence line of actually wanting to do
Just
it and
to go
not
back to
doing it?
what you quoted, if you want to be a writer, write. Sit down and write something.
Yeah.
Okay? It's going to suck. You're going to think it's great. And then someone's going to read it and go, yeah, but what is this? What about this? What about this? What about that? And you go, oh. And the thing I learned, one of the things I've learned is that you don't get to stand over somebody's shoulder and explain what you meant when you write. And if they look at you and they don't understand what you wrote, it's not because they're stupid, it's because you didn't do it well.
Mm,
And 99% of the time, there is always that 1%. But um, that's the most significant thing is you've got to really be able to tell your story and tell and communicate your character's points of view. There's a book that Stephen King wrote. It's called On Writing, and it's a nonfiction all about his writing process.
mm,
And in it, he says something, and I'm paraphrasing this now. I should go back and get the actual quote, but he says, if you ever hire a writer who says the sunset was indescribable, fire them. Their job is to describe the sunset.
mm,
And as I'm working, I'll write a couple of pages, then I'll go back, and I must say it two or three times a page. Describe the sunset. What did you just, you know what's in your head. You see it in your head, put it on the paper.
right.
Go from there. The other thing I did when I first started, I was writing, I had the story in my head, I understood my characters, all of that, but I my writing skills were not great. I took an online course at UCLA
Mm,
and I met this woman who Jessica Barksdale, who was the instructor, is a published author herself. She's had some nice success in her career, and she teaches. And I ended up taking three or four courses over the next year with her because it was amazing. The other thing, if you don't want to do that, join a writers group because if you're writing and nobody's reading it, you're
yeah.
not a writer. All
Ah,
right,
right.
you're writing it, putting it in a diary.
Yeah.
Have to write, you have to have other people read it and get their feedback. And you have to be able to put your ego aside and not try to justify what you did. Listen to what they're saying
Yeah.
and figure out how to make it work better. That's the most important part. And it's a long process and it's frustrating at times because I always say you never finish a novel, you just stop working on it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's always something that you can add and something else that's out there. And I go back and reread stuff every once in a while and think, you know what I should have done? I should have
Yeah.
done this. I should have said that. Um,
Yeah, that for sure itself is huge. The one thing that comes to mind, and I want to ask you this, if this is something that has crossed your mind, right? Everybody wants to be when they're writing something, right? And I obviously come across a lot of people that are authors, right? And the one common question that I hear a lot is, are you trying to be the next Harry Potter, right?
yeah.
And they do that. Is that in your mind too? Is that something that you want to reach out for, or to use really more like, hey, I'm just doing this because I really enjoyed it?
The as I said, I haven't had very much commercial success.
Yep.
But in all, as being as fair and objective as I can be, the stuff that I have written is every bit as good as John Grisham and the stuff that's out there.
Yeah.
Um, I'm getting enough feedback through, recognition and awards that tells me that I don't suck.
Right. Yeah.
And I really wish that I had more exposure and that more people were reading because I think it's a, I've been trying to get into airports. It's perfect book. I write for novels. I write novels for airport.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law said, I think it was my second book. He said, "Hey, I read your novel. It was great." I said, "Oh, great. When did you do it?" He said, "Well, I was on a 5 hour flight, so I read it on the plane."
Yeah.
I went, "You read the whole book on the plane?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, great. I'll spend the next 3 years trying to fill 5 hours of your time."
Yeah.
But
Right.
um, that would be I would really relish in some commercial success, but
Yeah.
it'll happen or it won't. And I'm out there working it and doing what I can do. It's
For sure.
interesting. When I first started, there was no there's a self-publishing industry right now.
Hmm.
And when I first started, which was 2010 was my first book, there wasn't.
There wasn't not many of that. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And so I kind of figured it out. And I started using Facebook and social media. And I ended up selling 3,500 copies of my first book, which
Nice.
for a first-time unknown author, I was pretty proud of it. I got an I-9,
Yeah.
from the publisher.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, And then if I had been able to follow it up with something, relatively soon, I could have built on that momentum. But instead, it took me 10 years to do my next one, and now that momentum was gone. And
Right.
now there's a whole industry out there
Yeah.
of self-publisher, and they're all the same, and they all do absolutely nothing. I've tried several of them
Yeah.
and have not been able to generate, we'll put your book in front of 60,000 people. You'll get 100 million likes. I'm like,
Yeah.
great. How many books will I sell?
Right. Right.
And the answer is none.
Yeah.
Okay. I've done it 2 or 3 times. It's cost me several $1,000s over the course of the years to do it. And you're just not seeing the return. The new thing that's happened now is I got an email about a month ago and it said, dear Thomas, we read the Edison Enigma, and then it listed some significant plot points and quoted my bio and said, "Gosh, if you directed the Ninja Turtles and you're this and that's so interesting, why are there only 7 reviews on Amazon for your book?" I went, "That's a great question."
Yeah.
And they said, "We have a group of writers that will read your book and leave a review."
Mm.
And I'm like, "Okay, and how much is this going to cost?" "Oh, they'll do it for free." I said, "Really?" "Yeah, we like to tip them like 20 bucks a review, but they'll do it for free." I went, "That's not for free."
Right. Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I went, "You know what? I'll tell you what, why don't we do this? I will pay you $15 for every review that's published on Amazon,
Hmm.
but I won't pay you until the review is published.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?" And this has happened twice. And they both came back and said, "Great, we'll start with 5. And as soon as we get 5 reviews up, then you pay us, you pay us the $75." Went, "Okay, I'll do that." And sure enough, within 18 hours, I had 5 reviews up there. Now I sent a link to the ebook and a PDF version of the book.
Yeah.
I'm like, "So you're going to tell me you got 5 people that read the book in 18 hours and published a review?" And I'm thinking, you know what this is? There's is an AI thing.
Yeah.
They,
For sure.
they put in, here's the salient facts, and AI publishes or, prints a review. And it's, Dottie from HR. And I'm like, okay, well, they did publish them. I'll try to pay them. And the payroll system they both used was so faulty, I couldn't pay them. And then all of it, and when the second one came along, it was the same payroll guy. And I'm like, okay, I don't know where the scam is here, but this is nothing but a
Right.
scam.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just said, you know what? I'm out. If I tried to pay you both, you're not taking my money. I'm out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so walked away. I
Yeah.
did get an extra 10 reviews, so
Hey, at least you got something out of it
that
for
worked
sure.
out well.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
and in the way Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all of them work, the more reviews you get, the higher profile you have in their system, and that's when you start getting more exposure. So,
Yeah.
um,
100%. Yeah, definitely. And you're right. I mean, there's so much now with, so much competition, and there's definitely some things that organically you can do nowadays to kind of get more traffic. And I myself are kind of looking at that and learn some stuff now that can help me with my own books too. But I understand the frustration. It could be a little bit of a frustrating to an extent, and being able to get your name out, right, and
Yeah.
be noticed
And
by other
networking
people.
is great to do. Um, I had a great time at this gala a couple of weeks ago. Like I said, there were 300 or 400 people there, and I don't know how many of them were finalists. Everyone at my table was a finalist.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and that's great, but everybody there is doing exactly the same thing I'm doing, which is networking with other authors, which doesn't get you anywhere.
yeah.
Another author's not going to do anything for you.
Right.
You got to get to a publisher, you got to get to a producer, you got to get to somebody like that, and um, I haven't been able to cross that threshold yet.
Yeah, for
So,
sure, for sure. Um, Let me ask you one question before the next one that I'm thinking. Do you feel like obviously you produce, theaters and things like that before theatrical? Would you want to see your book as maybe a theatrical or maybe a movie or something?
well, again, because of the way I write, they're all very easily adapted to screenplay. Matter of fact, the Edison Enigma I originally wrote as a screenplay.
Got it.
I got a little bit of traction on it, but then it ended up on the roadside with the other several million unproduced scripts, that
Gotcha.
are out there. And that process was really interesting because in a screenplay, you write character and action. Okay. 1904, Washington, D.C. train station. Tom steps off the train and surveys the platform. That's 3 pages in a novel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
you got to describe, the train coming to a stop, what the train station looks like, how it smells, what they're wearing, what's he looking for, etc. And and in a screenplay, that's all you have to write because you got an art director and a,
Right.
lighting director and a costumer, and they take care of all the rest of that stuff. You don't have to worry about it. Um, and I found myself writing stage directions when I was writing the book. Tom crosses to the door. I'm like, that's a stage direction. It's
Yeah.
not,
You're like, I
no.
gotta go deeper. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom stands up, hesitantly moves over to the door, looks through the keyhole or looks through the peephole to see who's on the other side. Then he opens the door. You know, that's
Yeah.
that's the biggest rule in writing is show, don't tell.
Mm.
Right? And the example I always use is um, she was in the resort pool and saw the flirty blonde with the red bikini top drop her hand on her husband's shoulder and rub. Her blood boiled. That's telling.
Mm.
Showing is she saw the blonde drop her hand on her shoulder, waded across the pool, grabbed her by the hair, put her underwater, pulled her up, and said, "Stay away from my husband." That's showing,
Got it. I love that. I love that. Yeah.
you
That's
know?
huge. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's the biggest trap most writers fall into is they tell rather than show. And if your character is feeling something, it's one thing to say, her heart broke. Well, what is that? How does that manifest physically?
Mm.
What happens that would show you that her heart broke? Does her eyes well up with tears and she, bent over in pain, physical pain in her stomach, whatever it is, that's what you have to search for. And that's where the real writing comes in.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, your books, where can people find your books? Where can they find more about you?
They are all on all of the electronic outlets, but my website is very easy to remember, thomas-white-author.com.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I have one of those names that is not hard to remember, thomas-white-author.com. And there's links on there for all of everything I've done. And there's a lot more, biographical information, a lot of pictures.
Yep.
Um,
Got
and
it.
it's a nice, I'm actually very happy with the site. It's very, very, very easy to maneuver and contact information, et cetera, is all on there.
Okay, and that's where they can pick up a copy if they want to. Do you have a
Yes.
paperback,
Yes,
hardcover?
it's available both in paperback
Awesome.
and ebook, and the Siren Scream is available in audiobook through Audible.
Okay.
Um,
Is
and
it your voice or somebody else's
yes,
voice?
no, it's with mine.
Okay,
And
awesome.
then Justice Rules will be available shortly. And I wrote myself into a corner with the Edison Enigma
Yeah.
because it time travels back to the beginning of the 20th century, so 1904.
Okay.
And there's a lot of immigration at that point in time. So there's all these different ethnic groups, the Irish and the, Scottish and all of this, Germans. And I suck at accents. I can't do them. I got all the way up to where my lead character is about to confront the first person he has to find when he goes back in time, and an Irish cop comes up, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I got to do an Irish accent." And so I've been experimenting with different programs and stuff. And what I can't find is the program that will take my voice and put it into an Irish accent. Because
Mm,
I don't want to have just suddenly some other voice in there. And the AI performance is always stale,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
just doesn't, it does this as opposed to
Right.
that. And you can hear it, you can spot it, in a second. And I just wish that I could find that program that will take my voice and my performance and put it into an Irish accent or a German accent.
Yeah, for sure.
And I haven't found it yet. So,
Yeah.
you know what? I haven't looked in 6 months. So I think I'll look again because they come
Yeah,
out
they might be out there
fast.
now with
Yeah, it
technology
comes
now. You
out so
never know.
fast.
For
So,
sure. Yeah, 100%. Well, definitely people can find your book. My last question for you will be for the people that are listening to us and are watching us, if they're going through any challenge, whatever challenge that might be, what is one thing or a couple of things you can say to them so they can start overcoming that challenge?
the there are any number of platitudes and any number of cliches, but they basically come from fact. The sun will come up tomorrow.
Mm,
Um, my personal favorite is there's 4 billion people in China that don't care.
yeah.
Um,
Never heard that one, but that's good.
you know,
Yeah.
um, and when you get down and you get depressed, for me, I find I have to break this. I have to break the cycle. I
Mm,
have to now go do something that I wouldn't normally do. Okay, go find something new. Go on a little trip, just to break out of that, away from that cloud that's sitting over at you. If you have a particular challenge at work, you have a challenge if you're writing and you have a challenge, do something different. Writing murder mysteries is easy because when you get really stuck, somebody has to die.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
You just kill somebody, and that changes the course of the whole, every place you're going on. And it's different in different, scenarios, of
Right.
course. Approach it differently. Look at it from another character's point of view. Okay, you're writing and your main character is this, and then suddenly, you don't know where to go with this. Write it from another person's point of view that's in the room and see
Mm,
what they see about what's going on.
yeah.
That should at least put you on a new path to, to develop the story more. So,
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you, Tom. Definitely, there was a lot of great information, and I love a lot of the things that you mentioned, specifically for people that want to write, people that want to get into into that space and offer something to for people to read. And I think that that's huge. So you definitely gave us a lot of great information. Any last minute words that you might want to say before I let you go?
no, just to repeat that if you're going to write. Join a writers group, take an online class, find something that will task you to say, okay, you need to come in with 4 pages tomorrow.
Yep.
And you don't know what that's going to be, but you have to do it now.
Right.
So do it and see
Yep.
what happens. And then when you start, it's going to suck. It just will because it's what's in your head. You're not putting what's in your head on the paper.
Right.
And if you get really stuck, Ask yourself, what's in my head? What am I seeing right here in this scene? They're sitting on the balcony of an apartment building overlooking a parking lot. What am I seeing? And what did I put on the paper? And
Yeah.
then suddenly you'll go, oh, I didn't put any of that on the paper.
Yeah.
So
No,
rewrite it.
100%. I like that.
Oh,
I like that. Definitely. Well, again, thank you again, Tom, for being here. Really appreciate our
well,
conversation.
thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's nice to meet you.
Yep, definitely. Likewise. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure that you go check him out. Go check out his website. Go pick up one of his books. And make sure that you share this message because definitely somebody needs to hear this. And I'll see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you feel stuck? Do you feel like life is against you? Do you feel like you can't get ahead? Well, we have a podcast for you. You can overcome anything with Cesar Espino, real estate investor and real estate coach, NLP practitioner, and author of the book of the same name. Cesar will show you a way to overcome anything in your life through talking with people from all walks of life that have done just that. You Can Overcome Anything podcast available on Spreaker.com.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.